AITA for refusing to help my sister pay for her wedding after she called me a selfish jerk for not supporting her financially. I, 28M, have a sister, Jessica, 30F, who is getting married to her fiancé, Alex, 32M. We've had a bit of a rocky relationship growing up, but over the years, we've managed to mend things and have been on decent terms. That being said, Jessica and I have very different approaches to life, especially when it comes to money. Here's the situation. Jessica has always been a bit of a spender. She's had a number of extravagant tastes since we were kids, and as adults, she has a tendency to live beyond her means. I've always been more financially conservative, saving up for the future and trying to live within my means. While I don't judge her for her lifestyle choices, we've had a few arguments over the years about money, especially when it comes to family events or big expenses. When Jessica got engaged, I was happy for her, but I knew there would be issues when the topic of the wedding came up. It's no secret that weddings can be expensive, and Jessica's dream wedding had an even higher price tag than most. She wanted a destination wedding in Hawaii, with an open bar, a photographer, a live band, fancy catering, and all the works. She was asking her family for financial help, and while my parents were willing to contribute a significant amount, I wasn't in a position to offer her the same. I make a decent living, but I've also been saving for a down payment on my own home, which is a priority for me right now. I've had some major setbacks in the past, lost my job during the pandemic, had to take a pay cut for a while, so I'm trying to be very careful with my finances these days. I explained this to Jessica when she first brought up the idea of me helping with her wedding costs. I told her that while I'm happy to support her emotionally and in any way I can, I simply can't afford to contribute financially. She seemed to understand at first, and we moved on to other topics. A couple of weeks later, however, she came back to me, frustrated. She told me that I was being selfish for not helping with her wedding and that it was my duty as her brother to make sure she had the wedding of her dreams. She even said that it would mean a lot to her if I could help pay for some of the big-ticket items, like the photographer and the venue. I told her again that I couldn't afford it, and she got even more upset. We had a heated argument over the phone. She told me I was being a jerk for not prioritizing family, and that I didn't understand how important this day was to her. She said that she had always been there for me, and now I was refusing to help her with something that was so important in her life. She even threw in that family should support each other, especially during major life events. At this point, I was getting pretty frustrated too, so I calmly told her that I wasn't in a position to help financially and that she should talk to our parents or Alex's family if she needed more financial support. This is where things got really messy. Jessica then accused me of not caring about her and only thinking about myself. She claimed that I was being cheap and didn't want to spend any money on her wedding because it was too much for me to handle. She called me a selfish jerk for not just sucking it up and helping out. The conversation ended with her telling me that I was no longer welcome to be involved in the wedding planning or any of the festivities, and that if I wasn't going to help, I might as well not come to the wedding at all. Honestly, I was hurt by what she said. I understand that weddings are emotional and stressful, but I thought I was being reasonable. I wanted to help in other ways, like attending the bridal shower and offering to run errands or assist with the little things, but she shut me down completely. I felt like she wasn't respecting my own financial situation or my priorities. Fast forward a few weeks, and the situation hasn't really improved. Jessica still insists that I'm being a terrible brother and that I should be ashamed of myself for not helping. She's now barely speaking to me, and I've been excluded from most of the wedding-related events. Our parents have stayed neutral, saying they understand both sides, but I can tell they lean more towards Jessica's perspective, which has been tough for me to handle. I've been considering whether or not to attend the wedding at all. Part of me feels like if I show up, it might smooth things over, but another part of me is wondering if I'm better off not going at all. I've already RSVP'd, and my mom has told me that I shouldn't let this ruin family relationships, but I'm still upset about how Jessica treated me. She's hurt me, and I feel like I've done nothing wrong. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister pay for her wedding and standing my ground when she called me a selfish jerk? Should I just give in and help her financially, or is it okay to stick to my guns and keep my financial priorities in check? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot and motivates me to create even more amazing content just for you. Make sure to turn on notifications so you'll never miss out on a new video. I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support. It truly helps the channel grow. AITA for refusing to help my brother anymore because of his miracle child. I, 35F, have one younger brother, Adam, 33M, who's been the golden child in our family since we were kids. My parents always favored him. I was expected to be the responsible one, the one who helped out, the one who gave up my time to make their lives easier. Adam got praise for the bare minimum, while I was told to be a team player every time something went sideways. It's been like that our whole lives. 5 years ago, I finally moved out of our hometown and got some space. I landed a good job, bought a small house in a nearby city, and started focusing on myself for the first time ever. Things were finally starting to feel fair, until Adam and his wife, Tara, had their baby. The thing is, their son, let's call him Caleb, was born prematurely with a lot of health complications. He's 3 now, and honestly, it's a miracle he made it. That part one get. I'm glad he pulled through, and I do feel for them. But ever since then, Adam and Tara have expected everyone, especially me, to drop everything and help them constantly because they're going through so much. At first, I was happy to help. I watched Caleb a couple times when they had hospital appointments, cooked meals for them when they were too exhausted, helped clean their house, even gave them $500 when they were short on bills due to all the medical expenses. I never asked for anything in return. I just wanted to support my brother. But then it turned into a pattern. Every weekend, they were too tired. Every holiday, I was expected to either host or help with hosting or take Caleb so they could recharge. If I said I couldn't help, I get guilt-tripped with texts like, "You don't understand what it's like to have a sick child," or "You're lucky you get to live your life." My parents started calling me selfish whenever I set boundaries. My mom even said, "You don't know what real sacrifice is." A few months ago, I hit a breaking point. I had just gotten promoted, and my job was more demanding. I also started seeing someone, and I was excited to build a real relationship. But Adam and Tara kept piling on. One Saturday, they called me at 7 a.m. saying Caleb had thrown up and they needed a rest. They wanted me to come over and deal with him for the day. I said no. I had plans, and I was exhausted myself. My brother blew up on me, saying I was being selfish and that family comes first. That was the last straw. I told him I wasn't his backup parent and that I had my own life. I told him and Tara to find a sitter or hire some help. I didn't say it to be cruel. I just couldn't keep giving them all my time and energy when it was never reciprocated. They didn't take it well. My brother hasn't spoken to me since, and Tara posted some not-so-subtle things online about fake family and people who abandon you when things get hard. My parents took their side, of course. They said I needed to apologize and step up because Caleb is a blessing and he deserves all the love and support we can give. Now here's where it gets more complicated. My dad called me a couple weeks ago and asked me to think about the bigger picture. He said that Caleb may not live to adulthood and that every moment counts. That hit me hard. I cried after that call. I do love my nephew, and the thought of something happening to him is heartbreaking. But I also don't think it's fair to use that as leverage to make me give up my life. I've tried to balance being supportive and maintaining boundaries, but it seems like any boundary I set is seen as me being cruel or uncaring. To give an example of how skewed things have gotten, last month was my birthday. I invited my family to come over for dinner. Adam and Tara declined because they were too tired again. Fair enough. But 2 days later, I saw photos of them out at a local kids' festival with Caleb. I didn't say anything, but it stung. When I mentioned it to my mom, she said, "They needed that more than you needed a party." So I've stopped helping entirely. I don't offer to babysit, I don't send money, I don't cook or clean for them. I've focused on my job and my relationship. I see friends more. I go to therapy. I feel like I'm finally breathing again. But the guilt is still there, especially when I think about Caleb. He didn't ask to be born into this mess. I love that kid. I just can't keep burning myself out for people who think I owe them everything. Recently, my mom called and said Adam and Tara were struggling again and asked if I could take Caleb for a weekend. I said no. I had a work trip and then plans with my boyfriend's family. She got quiet, then said, I hope you never have to learn the kind of grief they live with every day. That messed me up. I've talked to a couple close friends, and they're split. Some say I've done more than enough, and it's not my responsibility. Others say that in cases like this, you don't get to opt out of family. That even if it's hard or unfair, Caleb deserves every bit of support. I don't know. I don't want to be heartless. But I also don't want to be emotionally blackmailed for the rest of my life. So, AITA for refusing to help my brother anymore because of his miracle child. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she got kicked out of her parents' house, even though I have the space. So, I, 29M, have been living on my own for the past 7 years. I bought a house 3 years ago after saving up through a combination of living cheaply and working 2 jobs during my early 20s. I'm not rich or anything, but I live comfortably. It's a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, and I live alone. I have a stable job, a dog, and a small circle of friends. I'm a bit of an introvert and really value my space and routine. My younger sister Kayla, 22F, has always been the golden child in our family. She was the baby, the miracle child as my mom called her, born after several miscarriages. She was spoiled growing up, not maliciously, just doted on way more than me. She got whatever she wanted while I had to earn or negotiate for things. If she crashed her car, they bought her another one. When I needed help paying for textbooks, I was told to figure it out. Kayla didn't go to college right after high school, instead bouncing from job to job and occasionally doing a semester at community college before dropping out. My parents always covered her rent and utilities whenever she tried moving out. I think they thought they were helping her find herself, but she never had to learn to be independent. Meanwhile, I had been on my own since I was 20, paying my own way, building credit, dealing with life's punches. About 6 weeks ago, everything came to a head. Kayla was living with my parents again and had a fight with them. From what I've gathered, she maxed out one of their credit cards without telling them. She used it to buy concert tickets, clothes, and apparently a short trip to Miami with her friends. My parents were livid. It wasn't the first time she'd done something irresponsible, but I guess this time they'd had enough. They told her she had 2 days to find somewhere else to live. So, naturally, she called me. The call was exactly what you'd expect. Crying, dramatic, begging me to let her stay just for a little while. She said she'd help around the house, walk the dog, look for work nearby, the whole spiel. I'll be honest, I hesitated. I don't hate my sister. She's immature and impulsive, but she's still family. That said, I've seen this pattern play out too many times. She couch surfs, mooches off whoever takes her in, and doesn't change. I told her I'd think about it and talk to her the next day. That night, I did a lot of thinking. My life is quiet and structured. I work from home 3 days a week, and I need peace to concentrate. I take care of my house, my yard, my dog. I'm not someone who thrives in chaos, and Kayla brings chaos. She's loud, messy, stays out all night, sleeps until noon, and always seems to have some sort of drama going on. I didn't want that energy in my home. The next day, I told her no. She flipped out, first crying, then yelling, then accusing me of abandoning her when she had nowhere else to go. She said I had 3 empty rooms and no reason to say no except that I didn't care about her. I tried to explain that this wasn't about not loving her, but about protecting my space and sanity. I offered to help her find a short-term rental and even offered to cover her first 2 weeks of rent. She refused. She said I owed her because I was lucky to have it together, and that it wasn't fair I got to live comfortably while she was thrown to the wolves. My parents, surprisingly, took my side at first. I think they were still mad about the credit card. But after a week of her staying in a motel and calling them every day, they started to soften. Eventually, they started pressuring me to reconsider. They said I was being too cold and that this is what family is for. My mom even offered to pay me $200 a month to let Kayla stay with me, which is kind of insulting because I don't need or want their money. I just don't want a headache. I held my ground. I've stuck to my boundaries. Since then, the family dynamic has shifted. I'm the villain now. Every family group chat is awkward, and at Easter dinner a couple of weeks ago, Kayla wouldn't even look at me. My aunt pulled me aside and told me I should be ashamed for letting my sister suffer like this when I clearly have more than enough to share. I didn't respond because I knew whatever I said would make things worse. I get that this looks heartless from the outside. I do have space. I do have resources. But I also have the right to decide who lives in my home. I know what it would be like to live with Kayla. I've been there years ago when I was still at home. She takes over everything. She eats your food, uses your stuff, leaves a mess, blasts music at 2 a.m., brings random people over without warning. It's not just a few weeks, it never is. And once she's in, it'll be a nightmare to get her out again. Still, I wonder if I was too harsh. She is young. Maybe this could have been the wake-up call she needed, but maybe she needed it with a safety net. Maybe I could have been that net without being a doormat. Now my parents are back to paying for a studio apartment for her. They're trying to get her to go back to school. I feel like I'm being punished for creating a stable life, while she gets a soft landing again after blowing up her last chance. So, AITA for saying no and not letting my sister move in, even temporarily, even though I have the space. AITA for making my sister pay rent after she moved in with me, even though she's struggling. I, 32M, live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent in a mid-sized city. I've worked in IT for about a decade, and I'm financially stable, though not rich. My younger sister, Claire, 24F, moved in with me 5 months ago after things fell apart between her and our parents. A little backstory. Claire and I have always been close, despite our age difference. I basically helped raise her. Our parents are the strict, old-school type who believe that you either follow their rules or you're out. When Claire came out as bisexual last year and started dating a woman, things got tense at home. Then she dropped out of college. She was struggling with depression and failing classes, and that was the final straw. Our parents kicked her out. I didn't even hesitate. I told her she could come live with me. At the time, I said we'd figure things out as we go, and that she should focus on finding a job and getting back on her feet. For the first couple of months, I didn't charge her anything. I paid for groceries, utilities, rent, everything. She got a part-time job at a cafe and started contributing here and there, maybe $30 for groceries once or twice, but mostly I was covering her. Around the 3-month mark, I sat her down and told her we needed to talk about rent. I wasn't trying to be mean, but I wanted her to start thinking about contributing in a real way. I suggested she start paying $300 a month. That's less than half of what her room is worth in this area, but I figure it was a fair number considering her part-time job. She was upset, said she was trying her best, that she was applying to other jobs, and that $300 was more than half her paycheck most weeks. I offered to lower it to $200 for now, with the understanding that we'd revisit the number in a couple of months. She agreed, reluctantly, but things have been tense ever since. She barely speaks to me unless she has to. She stopped helping around the apartment. Dishes sit for days, trash overflows, laundry piles up. I've talked to her about it a few times, but she either shuts down or says she's too exhausted from work. Then last week, she told me she got offered a full-time job at a bookstore. It's not a dream job, but it pays better and has benefits. I congratulated her and asked if she wanted to revisit the rent conversation. Maybe now she could start contributing a bit more. I even said we could use the extra money to get better groceries, or maybe take a short trip together. I thought I was being supportive. She exploded. So I didn't actually care about her, only about money. She called me selfish, said I was turning into our parents, and that she thought I was different. She accused me of pretending to be generous only so I could hold it over her head. That hurt. A lot. I told her I was doing my best too, that I've been paying for nearly everything without complaint, and I thought it was fair to ask for help now that she was more stable, that I wasn't rich, and while I could afford it for a while, this wasn't sustainable long term. She packed a bag that night and went to stay with her girlfriend. She's been gone for a week. I've texted her a few times just to check in, but she's barely responded. Our mom even called me, saying I was being heartless and that Claire is still a kid figuring things out. That part really pissed me off, since she was the one who kicked Claire out in the first place. Now I'm stuck wondering, did I cross a line? I genuinely don't want to be the villain here. I love my sister. I've tried to be there for her in ways our parents never were. But I also think part of caring for someone is helping them grow up, and part of growing up is contributing when you can. Still, maybe I misread things. Maybe it made her feel like a burden. Maybe she's right, and I was keeping score more than I realized. I don't know. I've been overthinking this constantly. Some friends say I did the right thing, and she's being immature. Others say I should have waited longer before bringing up rent, especially given her mental health struggles and everything she went through. So Reddit, AITA for asking my struggling sister to pay rent after she moved in with me? AITA for refusing to help my sister anymore after she put me on blast to her friends? So I, 29M, have always been the dependable one in the family. That's not self-praise. It's just what my mom and dad always said. My older sister, Marla, 32F, is the opposite. She's fun, outgoing, popular, and a bit of a mess when it comes to responsibility. For as long as I can remember, I've been the one expected to help out when she got herself into trouble. Missed rent? I covered her once. Needed a last-minute babysitter? I canceled my plans. Wanted help setting up her online business that she gave up on after 2 months? I spent 2 weekends building the site. I never asked for anything in return, and I didn't complain because I love her and I wanted her to succeed. The situation that blew everything up happened a few weeks ago. Marla called me frantic on a Thursday evening because her car wouldn't start and she had a big event to attend. One of those networking things for influencers, which she's been trying to break into. She begged me to help, said she couldn't miss it. I work full-time and had already been swamped with projects, but I figured I could help if I rearranged some things. So I left work early Friday, picked up her car, got it towed, and paid half of the repair because she didn't have the money and promised she'd pay me back the next week. The following weekend, I got invited to hang out with some mutual friends, and by mutual I mean mostly her friends who tolerate me. I don't go out much, but I figured why not. I showed up, and within 10 minutes, one of her friends made a snide comment like, "Oh look, the family assistant has arrived." I thought it was a joke, but then another chimed in about how I must be used to picking up Marla's slack and serving big brother energy. I laughed it off awkwardly and found Marla, assuming she'd shut it down. Instead, she laughed with them. Later, she made a full-on joke in front of the group about how I was her personal Uber, IT guy, and therapist all rolled into one. Everyone laughed. I just stood there. It didn't feel funny. It felt humiliating. I told her in front of everyone that maybe she should figure out how to do things herself then, and walked out. She texted me the next day like nothing happened, asking if I could swing by to help her edit a video because her laptop was glitching. I didn't respond. The day after, she called and I picked up. I told her calmly that I was done helping her, not just for the laptop, but for good. I said I felt taken for granted and mocked, and if she couldn't respect what I've done for her, I wasn't going to keep enabling it. She blew up. She accused me of overreacting, said I embarrassed her by walking out and making a scene, and that I was being petty. I told her the real embarrassment was her making me into a punchline after everything I've done. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, she's posted vague Instagram stories about fake support systems and people who help you just to hold it over you. Our mom has called me a few times, saying I know Marla isn't great with boundaries, but she's family, and I shouldn't have gone nuclear. She said I could have just told her how I felt without cutting her off entirely. Maybe I could have. But here's the thing. I have told Marla before that I felt like she was taking advantage. She always apologizes, then repeats the pattern. And honestly, I didn't even cut her off in some dramatic way. I just told her I wouldn't keep helping with everything when it's clear she doesn't value it. If she needed help in a real emergency, I wouldn't ignore her. But the constant stream of favors, the financial support, the way she laughs with her friend about it like I'm some sad clown, I just can't do that anymore. I've always believed in being there for family, and I'm not trying to make this into some lifelong grudge. But it's been freeing not constantly being on call for someone who doesn't seem to appreciate me. The guilt, though, that's what's eating at me, especially with our mom low-key siding with her. She says I'm punishing Marla for not being like me. But I don't want her to be like me. I just want her to stop using me like I'm her backup plan for everything. It's not like I don't understand that people need help sometimes. I do too, but I've been there for her again and again, and she used that loyalty to make me look pathetic. And now I'm the villain in her narrative because I finally said no. I didn't scream. I didn't insult her. I just told her I'm stepping back. And yet somehow that makes me the bad guy. So yeah, AITA? AITA for making my brother's fiancée cry over a board game and refusing to apologize. So this whole thing blew up about a week ago, and it's somehow still going, so I figured I'd throw it to strangers online and see if I really am the one being difficult. I, 27, live with my partner, 26F, and every few months we host a game night with a few friends and some family. It's a pretty chill night. We do snacks, drinks, and play more strategic or quirky board games instead of the usual party games. We're not snobs about it, but we do lean toward games that involve some thinking or strategy over stuff like Cards Against Humanity. Everyone who comes knows that. A few months ago, my younger brother, 24M, let's call him Jake, got engaged to his girlfriend Lauren, 22F. We met her a handful of times. She's bubbly, a little dramatic, and very into TikTok trends. Not really my kind of person, but hey, Jake seems happy. Anyway, Jake asked if he could bring Lauren a game night since she'd never been to one before, and he thought it would help her feel more included. Cool, no problem. I even made sure to pick a game that was easier to learn but still had some depth. A game called Wingspan, for anyone who's curious. It's about collecting birds and building ecosystems. Easy to teach, very pretty, and not too competitive unless you really get into it. So we had 5 of us that night. Me, my partner, Jake, Lauren, and our friend Jordan, 29M, who is really into games but super patient when teaching. I explained the rules, and Lauren nodded along, but was already halfway through her second drink by the time we finished the explanation. No judgment, it's game night, have fun, but you kind of need to pay attention for this one. The first few rounds go okay, but Lauren keeps forgetting what the cards do, asking us to repeat the rules, and getting frustrated that she doesn't have cool birds like everyone else. I gently tried to explain that some cards work together and that it's all about building your engine, but she just got more annoyed. At one point, she actually slammed her hand down and said, "This is just too much thinking. Why can't we play something fun like Uno?" I tried to keep it light and said, "We can totally play something lighter after this game. It's almost over anyway." That apparently didn't sit well with her, because she muttered something about games being for fun, not for nerd points. We wrap up the game, and I end up winning by like 10 points. Jake came in second, Jordan third, and Lauren dead last, like significantly. She looked upset, so I said something like, "Hey, first time playing, right? It takes a round or two to really click. You'll probably beat us next time." I meant it sincerely, but she narrowed her eyes and said, "No, I won't, because I'm never playing this stupid game again." And then she added, "Honestly, it's kind of rude that you made me sit through something so boring and hard when you knew I wouldn't get it." At this point, I was already tired and had been trying to be patient for 2 hours. So I just said, "Nobody made you play, Lauren. You could have sat out or said something earlier. It's a game night. We play games. You were invited, not conscripted." She got really quiet after that, and Jake gave me this look like I just slapped her. About 10 minutes later, Lauren excused herself to the bathroom and stayed in there for a while. Jake followed her in after knocking and came out saying they were heading out early. The next morning, Jake texted me saying Lauren cried on the drive home and that I embarrassed her in front of everyone. He said I was dismissive and rude and made her feel stupid. I replied that I was bending over backward, trying to be welcoming, but that I wasn't going to apologize for playing a game that the rest of us enjoyed just because she didn't. Now here's where things get weird. A few of our mutual friends have started texting me, saying Lauren's been posting vague TikToks about toxic nerds and gatekeeping hobbies, and how some people treat you like garbage for not being as smart as them. She didn't name me directly, but it's pretty obvious who it's about. One of the posts had the caption, "Imagine being bullied over a bird game, LOL." Some people are saying I should just apologize to keep the peace, but honestly, I'm kind of pissed. I hosted the night, picked a game that was relatively simple, explained the rules clearly, and even tried to be encouraging. If anything, she made the night difficult for the rest of us by refusing to engage with the game in good faith and then getting upset when she didn't win. Jake says I should have just let it go when she called the game stupid and boring, but I don't think it's fair to let a guest insult something we all enjoy, especially when we tried to include her. I told him I won't apologize for something that wasn't mean-spirited to begin with. So, Reddit-style verdict needed. AITA for not apologizing to my brother's fiancée after she cried over losing a board game and me pushing back a little. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she got kicked out of our parents' house. So, here's the situation. I, 28M, live alone in a modest but decent two-bedroom apartment in a city about 2 hours away from where I grew up. I work in IT, make a stable income, and live a pretty quiet life. I like my space, I like my routine, and I've worked hard to get to a place where I feel secure. Enter my younger sister, Anna, 22F. Anna has always been the more dramatic, free-spirited one in the family. She never really took school seriously, switched majors 3 times in college before dropping out, and has had more jobs in the last 3 years than I can count. My parents have always had a bit of a soft spot for her. I wouldn't go as far as to say she was spoiled, but she was definitely the golden child growing up. She got away with a lot of things that I never would have been allowed to. About a month ago, I got a call from my mom saying Anna had been kicked out of the house. Apparently, she and my dad had a massive fight, something about her not following through on a job interview and staying out late with friends. According to my mom, my dad told her that she either needed to start contributing or move out. She chose to move out. I don't know all the details, but I know this wasn't their first fight over her lack of direction. My mom asked if Anna could stay with me, just for a little while, until she got back on her feet. I said no. I didn't even hesitate. I told my mom I wasn't comfortable with it. She was shocked. She kept saying it was just temporary, that family helps family, and that I had a whole extra bedroom that I wasn't even using. I told her that was true, but having an extra room doesn't mean I'm obligated to take someone in, especially someone I don't trust or respect my space. Anna has always been messy, inconsiderate, and impulsive. Last Christmas, when she visited, she borrowed my car without asking, stained my couch with red wine, and brought a random guy over to my place while I was at work. When I confronted her about it, she laughed it off like I was being uptight. I don't want to live with someone like that. I like my home the way it is, calm, clean, and drama-free. My mom kept pressuring me, and eventually, Anna started texting me too. Her messages started off kind of casual. Hey, heard you've got space. Mind if I crash for a few? But when I didn't reply, they turned passive-aggressive. Things like, wow, can't even help out your own sister, and guess blood doesn't mean anything anymore. I finally texted her back and told her straight up that I didn't think it was a good idea. I said I hoped she found somewhere, but I didn't want to risk our relationship by living together. She replied with a single word, wow. Since then, my mom has told me she's disappointed in me, that I'm being selfish, and that Anna is in a really fragile place. My dad, interestingly, hasn't said much, probably because he's the one who kicked her out in the first place. But my aunt, mom's sister, even called me out of the blue to guilt-trip me. She said that Anna just needs a stable environment and that I could provide that. Here's where I might be the asshole. I have the means to help. I have space. I'm not struggling financially, and I know it wouldn't be forever. But the truth is, I just don't want to. I don't want to come home to a messy apartment. I don't want to have to worry about missing food or late-night guests or loud music when I have to work early. I don't want to clean up after someone else, especially someone who's shown me before that she has no respect for my boundaries. A couple of my friends are split. One of them said I'm absolutely right and that I'm not responsible for cleaning up Anna's messes. Another said I'm being too harsh and should have at least given her a week or two to figure things out. One friend even suggested I let her stay under clear rules with a written agreement. But honestly, I don't think Anna would follow them. And enforcing rules would just make me the bad guy in my own home. Now it's been 3 weeks, and Anna is apparently couch hopping with friends. My mom keeps giving me updates, probably hoping I'll change my mind, but I'm standing firm. I feel like I've made the right call for my mental health and peace of mind. But still, the guilt is creeping in. Maybe I should have sucked it up and helped her, even for a little bit. I don't know. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me when she got kicked out of our parents' house. AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after my parents promised him he could. So this is kind of long and messy, and I'm probably going to come off like a jerk to some people, but I really need outside opinions. I, 29M, own a small 2-bedroom house. I bought it 4 years ago after working my butt off and saving for years. It's not fancy or huge, but it's mine. I live alone, and the second bedroom is my office/hobby room. I work a remote job and spend a lot of my off time doing woodworking, so it's important space to me. I've spent a lot of time and money fixing this house up. When I moved in, it was borderline unlivable. I've redone floors, walls, plumbing, yard work, you name it. I'm proud of it. My younger brother, 23M, let's call him Jason, is not in a great spot. He flunked out of college last year, hasn't held down a job for longer than 2 months, and got kicked out of his last apartment for not paying rent. My parents, late 50s, have helped him a lot. They paid his rent for the first year, covered car repairs, and even bought him groceries weekly. But they said enough was enough after the third time he lied about working when he wasn't. Recently, Jason got evicted again. He called me, crying, saying he had nowhere to go. I was sympathetic, but I told him he needed to go to our parents and figure something out with them. He said they refused. I called my mom and asked what was going on. She said they were going to let him stay with them, but he got mouthy and disrespectful again, and my dad said absolutely not. Now here's where things got messy. A week after that call, my parents called me and told me they had a plan. They wanted Jason to move into my house. Not as a roommate, not paying rent, he has no job, remember, but just temporarily while he figures things out. I asked them what that meant. How long is temporary? What does figure things out even look like when he's done nothing to help himself? They brushed it off and said, "Come on, you've got the space. You live alone. He's your brother." I told them, politely, that I didn't think it was a good idea. Jason and I aren't close. He's not a bad person, but he's entitled, loud, messy, and doesn't respect boundaries. He's been in my home before and left dirty dishes everywhere, spilled something on my couch and didn't clean it, and once used my power tools without asking and broke a drill bit, then lied about it. They didn't like my answer. My mom said I was being cold. My dad told me to man up and help family in need. Jason started texting me passive-aggressively about how he guessed he knows who really has his back now. So I told them all no, not maybe. Now let me think about it. No. I told him Jason needs to learn consequences and that being handed another place to live, free of responsibility, was just enabling the same behavior. I said if they thought he deserved a place to live, they could open their doors. They told me I was being selfish, that it's just for a while, and that I'm lucky to even own a house and should be more generous. Cue the fallout. Jason posted something vague but clearly aimed at me on Facebook about how family turns their backs on you when you're down, and people started messaging me asking what happened. I ignored them at first, but one mutual friend called me out in a group chat, saying I was letting my brother be homeless while living comfortably in a whole house by myself. Another friend said it was just a couch, and I should be a decent human for once. I snapped. I replied in the group chat and laid it all out. How Jason's behavior led to this, how many chances he's had, how I'd worked for everything I have while he's had constant handouts and still manages to screw up. I told them all to either respect my decision or stop talking to me about it. Now I've been called classist, cold-hearted, and even elitist, which is wild considering I grew up eating off-brand cereal and wearing hand-me-downs until I was 17. One friend said I was judging Jason for being poor and struggling, which honestly pisses me off. I'm not judging him for being broke. I'm judging him for never doing anything to change that. I don't think I'm better than him. I just don't think I should be his free safety net when he's never even shown he respects me or my home. Even my parents won't drop it. They said they're disappointed in me, which stung more than I thought it would. My mom keeps texting me, "He's your brother," like that's supposed to change something. But I still feel confident I made the right call. That said, a few people I trust, have told me I'm being too harsh. That if I let him stay just for a few weeks, it might get him back on his feet. That he needs support and love, not judgment. That it's not like he's going to destroy my house or steal from me. They say even if he's not perfect, I should do it for family. And that maybe this time, things will actually change. I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm bitter. Maybe I'm using boundaries as an excuse to not get involved. But I also don't want to spend the next year living with a guy who doesn't respect me or my space, especially after I've built this life up for myself from basically nothing. So yeah, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after my parents promised him he could. AITA for refusing to talk to my sister unless she admits what she did to my cat. I, 29M, have a sister, 32F, named Lauren. We were close growing up, not best friends or anything, but we had each other's backs. Our family was small, just us and our mom, who did her best, but worked long hours and left us to our own devices a lot. I think that made us bond more than we might have otherwise. We both moved out young, her at 18, me at 19. She bounced around jobs and apartments, and I got into IT and found some stability. Fast forward a bit. I bought a small house last year with a decent yard, and Lauren moved in with me for a few months after losing her job and getting out of a bad relationship. I didn't mind helping her out. I had the space, and I figured it was temporary. Now, the important part. I have a cat named Bean. I've had him for 6 years. He's not just a pet. He's my buddy. I found him as a kitten in a grocery store parking lot and took him in. He's a little weird, likes to sleep in sinks and chirps instead of meowing. But he's the gentlest creature I've ever met. Doesn't scratch, doesn't bite, just wants a nap on your lap and follow you around the house like a furry shadow. Lauren and Bean didn't exactly hit it off. She's not a pet person and never has been, which is fine. I didn't expect her to love Bean, just to tolerate him. But from the beginning, she'd complain constantly about his fur, the litter box, which I clean daily, the sound of him walking on the wood floors at night. He wears a bell because he used to get into things, but it's tiny. She said she was allergic. She's not. She's had allergy tests. Then claimed he scratched her, but I checked, and the mark looked more like a rug burn. I brushed it off. I thought she was just stressed. Then, about a month into her stay, Bean disappeared. I came home from work, and he wasn't at the door like usual. I called for him, searched every corner of the house. Nothing. Checked the yard. No sign. I started to panic. Bean's never gone outside without me, and he's microchipped, always indoors. I asked Lauren if she'd seen him. She said, he probably ran off. Cats do that. That didn't sit right with me. Bean doesn't bolt. He's scared of the vacuum. He doesn't go near open doors. I pressed her. Had she left a door open? She shrugged and said maybe, that she had a phone call and might have stepped outside and not noticed. I took off work the next day, printed flyers called every shelter, every vet. Posted on Nextdoor, Facebook, everything. Nothing. I was devastated, and Lauren was weirdly cold about it. She barely acknowledged how upset I was. Kept saying things like he'll come back if he wants to, or maybe it's for the best. That last one made my stomach drop. A week passed. Then 2. I cried more than I'd like to admit. After a while, I stopped talking to Lauren much. I couldn't even look at her. Something felt off. I started replaying things. How she always shut her door tightly when Bean came around. How once I caught her shooing him with her foot. The way she kept saying things like, "You're too obsessed with that cat." Then one night, I found a post on her private Instagram account. A friend of mine follows her from years ago and sent it to me. It was a selfie of her at the park with the caption, "Finally got some peace and quiet home." Sometimes you just got to do what's best for your mental health. Post of the day, Bean disappeared. I confronted her. She denied everything. Said I was reading too much into it, that she just needed a break from chaos, and that I was turning a missing pet into a conspiracy. I asked her directly, did she let him out? Her face went blank. Then she said, does it matter? He's gone. Just get another one. That was it for me. I told her to pack her things and find another place. She tried to guilt me, said she had nowhere to go, that I was choosing an animal over family. I told her I was choosing truth over whatever this was. She moved out within a few days. Our mom was upset with me for making things harder on Lauren when she was already down. She asked if I could be the bigger person and reach out. I told her I would, if Lauren admitted what she did, if she apologized, if she gave me closure. But she won't. She refuses to even acknowledge that she might have done anything wrong. Just keeps saying I'm being dramatic and obsessive. It's been 5 months now. I still haven't heard from her. He never came back. I still check the shelters and keep his food in the pantry. It's hard to move on when I don't know. And it's not just about the cat anymore. It's about trust. About how someone I let into my home could look me in the eye and lie like that. My mom thinks I'm being petty. Some of my friends say I should just let it go, that Bean's probably gone and no confession will change that. But I feel like I'm betraying him if I just forgive her like nothing happened. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to speak to my sister unless she admits what she did to my cat. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to help my brother after he lost his job, even though I could afford to. AITA for refusing to help my brother after he lost his job, even though I could afford to. So I, 32M, have always been the responsible one in the family. I don't say that it sounds self-important. It's just how things have always been. I was the one who got a part-time job in high school to help my mom with bills. I skipped the whole gap year backpacking thing and went straight into university. I studied engineering, graduated, and now I work in tech. I've never been rich, but I've always been stable. I have a nice apartment, a paid-off car, and some savings I'm proud of. No kids, not married, no massive expenses outside of my cat and the occasional vacation. My younger brother, Kyle, 29M, has had a very different life. He's charming, outgoing, and honestly one of the most naturally likable people I've ever known. But he's also impulsive, incredibly bad with money, and always kind of chasing the next big thing. One year he's all in on becoming a music producer, then it's a custom sneaker business, then real estate, then drop shipping. He never really finishes anything. Every time one of his ventures doesn't work out, he crashes back at our mom's place for a few months, finds a job at a bar or a warehouse, and then tries something else. I've bailed him out before, more than once. I helped him pay off a credit card when he was 25. I co-signed on a car loan he defaulted on. I ended up paying it off myself. I paid his rent once when he was threatened with eviction. I never made a big deal about it, but after that last one, I told him very clearly that it was the last time. I told him he needed to start taking his life more seriously and that I wasn't going to keep cleaning up his messes. Fast forward to 2 months ago. Kyle had been working as a marketing assistant at some local startup, and it actually seemed like he was doing okay. He had a small apartment, a girlfriend, and was even talking about saving up for a trip to Mexico. Then the startup went under. He got laid off, and from what I've heard, didn't have much in savings. About a week after that, he called me. He was frantic, saying he was behind on rent, his utilities were about to get cut off, and he didn't have enough to even buy groceries. He asked if I could loan him $2,000 to get through the next month while he found a new job. I said no. He went quiet for a moment and then asked if I was serious. I said yes. I told him I understood things were rough, but I'd warned him before that I couldn't keep supporting him. He got angry, said that he was actually trying this time, that he'd been doing well until this totally unexpected layoff, and that I was being cold and selfish. He accused me of looking down on him, of thinking I was better than him just because I got lucky with a stable job. I told him it had nothing to do with luck. I've worked hard for years, made sacrifices, and learned to manage my money. I reminded him that I'd helped him before, and each time it only enabled him to keep making the same bad decisions. I said I wasn't going to be his safety net anymore. He hung up on me. Since then, things have blown up in our family. My mom has called me multiple times, begging me to help just this once. She's retired and doesn't have the money herself, but she says she can't stand seeing Kyle suffer. She thinks I'm being harsh and that I don't understand what it's like to struggle, which frankly is BS considering how much I struggled when I was younger. My aunt even texted me and said I was letting money change me. On the other hand, a couple of my friends think I did the right thing. One of them, whose brother has also dealt with chronic irresponsibility, said that sometimes tough love is the only way people learn. But I still feel awful. Kyle hasn't responded to my text since, and I hate that it's come to this. To be clear, I could afford the $2,000. It would sting a little, but it wouldn't put me in any kind of serious trouble. But I'm just so tired of feeling like I'm the only one who ever has to be the adult. Tired of being the fallback. Tired of pretending that Kyle's pattern is anything other than self-destruction dressed up as optimism. A few days ago, I heard through her cousin that Kyle's been staying with a friend and might be looking into moving back home with our mom again. He's apparently picked up some gig work and might have a job interview next week. Part of me is relieved, at least he's surviving. Another part of me feels guilty. Maybe I could have bought him a little more time. Maybe things would have been different if I just helped one last time. But I keep going back to that same thought. What's going to change? He's been bailed out so many times, and it's never actually led to him getting his act together. It's just extended the cycle. Still, I can't shake the guilt. I know I made a choice based on logic and boundaries, but emotionally, it still feels like I abandoned him. That's what's been eating at me lately, not whether I was right, but whether it was kind. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my brother, even though I could afford to? Let me have it. AITA for refusing to let my cousin bring her boyfriend to my birthday party? I, 28F, have a cousin, Laura, 29F, who's been part of my life since we were kids. We grew up like sisters, and we were always close, even when we went our separate ways as we got older. I've always tried to include her in my major life events, and she's been there for me, too, through tough times. For the most part, we get along really well. So, my birthday was coming up, and I was planning to host a small dinner at my favorite restaurant. Nothing big, just a low-key celebration with some of my closest friends and family. I sent out the invites well in advance, and when I told Laura about it, she seemed excited and asked if she could bring her boyfriend, Sam, 30M, along. I hadn't met him before, but I didn't think much of it. I said it was fine, especially since she was excited to introduce him to everyone. However, after some thought, I started to feel a little uneasy about the idea. Here's the thing. Laura and Sam have been dating for only a few months. I have no problem with short-term relationships or anything, but Laura is known for dating a lot of people, and some of her relationships have been very short-lived. It's not uncommon for her to introduce someone new every couple of months, and it's usually a whirlwind, we're so in love type of situation. My friends and family are well aware of this pattern, and some of them have even joked about it before. I guess I was just worried that having Sam there, someone I don't know, and who I might not even see again in a few weeks, would feel out of place. This is a small dinner, and I was hoping it would be a cozy, intimate celebration with people I know well. I wasn't sure how comfortable I'd feel with him there, especially given the casual nature of their relationship so far. I talked it over with my best friend, Jess, and she agreed with me, saying it might be a little awkward for everyone if someone we barely know showed up. She even mentioned that it might feel weird for my other guests who don't know Lara's boyfriend at all. I decided that, given how important this birthday was to me, I didn't want to risk it feeling uncomfortable or forced. So, I sent Laura a message and said I wasn't comfortable with her bringing Sam to the party. I explained that it was nothing personal against him, but that I was hoping for a small, close-knit celebration and that I wasn't ready to introduce someone I didn't know well to everyone in such an intimate setting. I also mentioned that I would love to meet him at a later time, but this party wasn't the best occasion for it. She responded with a long message saying I was being ridiculous, that it was just one person, and that I should be more inclusive. She also said that it was rude to exclude him when he was a big part of her life now, and that it would hurt her feelings if he couldn't come. At first, I felt guilty. I thought maybe I was overreacting, but then I remembered that this birthday celebration was something I had been looking forward to for a while. I wasn't sure how I could justify asking someone I didn't know well to join an event that I had envisioned differently. I tried to explain this to her in my response, but she didn't seem to take it well. She said that if I couldn't accept Sam as part of her life, then maybe we weren't as close as I thought. I started feeling really torn. On one hand, I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but on the other hand, I felt like I had the right to have the kind of birthday celebration I wanted, especially since this was about me, and not her or anyone else. I knew she had been dating Sam for a while, but I didn't feel like I had to automatically open up my celebration to every new person she was seeing, especially given her track record. A few days later, Laura reached out to me again and asked if I had changed my mind about Sam attending. She even said that if I didn't want him there, then she wouldn't come either. That put me in a really tough spot. I didn't want to lose my cousin, but I also didn't want to back down from my original plan. I tried to remain calm and told her that I valued our relationship and didn't want to lose her, but I also wanted to have the birthday I had envisioned. I said I understood if she didn't want to come because of my decision, but that I hoped she would still be there to celebrate with me. After that conversation, I didn't hear from her for a couple of days. Then, on the day of the party, I showed up to the restaurant and my friends and family were already there. It was a bit of a relief when I saw everyone, but there was still this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that I had hurt Laura. She hadn't shown up, and it felt weird without her there, but I pushed it aside and tried to enjoy the evening. Laura eventually messaged me, saying that she wasn't coming because I had ruined everything, and that I had made her feel like her relationship wasn't important to me. I tried to explain again that it wasn't about her relationship, but she seemed really upset and said she needed some time to process everything. Now, I'm feeling guilty. I can't help but wonder if I was too harsh or if I should have just let Sam come. I don't want to lose my cousin over this, but I also feel like I had every right to choose what kind of celebration I wanted for myself. I'm just not sure anymore if I made the right call. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin bring her boyfriend to my birthday party? AITA for telling my brother I won't attend his birthday party because of the way he treats me? I, 30F, have an older brother, Dave, 33M. Growing up, we were close, but things started changing when we became adults. He's always been a bit of a life of the party kind of guy, outgoing, loud, the center of attention, and in some ways, charming. I've always been the quieter, more reserved one, but we got along well enough, especially before I moved to a different city for work. The issue started when I moved back to our hometown about 3 years ago. I wasn't expecting things to go back to the way they were before, but I also wasn't prepared for how distant and condescending Dave would be toward me. He was always very critical of my life choices, from my job to my personal relationships, but at first I brushed it off. He's just a bit blunt, I thought. That was until it became more frequent and began to feel like he genuinely disapproved of everything I did. For example, last year, I finally mustered up the courage to start dating again after a long break. I had met a guy, Jack, 32M, and we had been seeing each other for a few months. Things are going well, and I was happy. Dave, however, immediately started making jokes about him. At first, it was lighthearted, poking fun at how boring Jack seemed or how he couldn't believe I was dating someone so normal, his words. It fell a bit off, but not enough to raise alarms. Then, during a family dinner, Dave made a comment in front of everyone about how Jack must be pretending to like me just to get in my pants because nobody would willingly choose to date someone as boring as me. I was mortified. I had a long talk with him afterward and told him that his words really hurt me, but he just brushed it off as a joke and said I was being too sensitive. That comment stung for a while, but I try to let it go for the sake of family peace. More recently, Dave started making snide remarks about my career. I work in a fairly low-paying but fulfilling job in a nonprofit, helping people who are going through difficult times. It's hard work, but it's something I'm passionate about. Dave, on the other hand, works in finance, and while I respect his success, it feels like he looks down on me because of the difference in our careers. He's always mentioning how my job isn't going to pay the bills, or how people like me are just stuck in a cycle of wanting to save the world, but never actually getting anything done. Again, I try to ignore it, but these comments started to eat away at me. The last straw came when he threw a party for his birthday. He invited all of our family and friends, and even though we weren't in the best place, I decided to attend. I figured maybe this was his way of trying to reach out and be better. However, as the night went on, I realized I was wrong. Dave made a big show of introducing me to some of his friends, and in front of them, he started joking about how surprising it was that I still hadn't moved on from my boring job, and how she's too nice for her own good. She'll never make it in the real world. His friends all laughed, but I felt like I was shrinking inside. It wasn't just the comments, it was the way he kept doing it in front of people, making me the punchline of his jokes as if it was normal. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped outside for some air, and when I came back in, I told him I was leaving. He asked me why, and I said I didn't feel comfortable there. He immediately accused me of ruining his birthday and making everything about me. I tried to explain that his behavior was hurtful, but he just shrugged it off and told me I was being dramatic and needed to get over myself. I left the party in tears, and I felt humiliated. For the next few days, I barely heard from him. No apology, nothing. When I finally confronted him about it, he told me I was being too sensitive again and that it was just a joke, but that I should get over myself. He added that if I was going to act like that, he didn't want me at his next birthday or any family events. I told him I was done. I said I wouldn't attend any future events if he was going to treat me like that. Since then, things have been pretty tense between us. Our family doesn't really know what happened, but I've been getting messages from our mom asking me to forgive him and that I should be more understanding since he's just joking. Our dad, on the other hand, says I should try to mend things because he's family and you should let it go. I've been thinking a lot about this situation and I'm really torn. On one hand, I know he's my brother and family is important, but on the other hand, I don't know how many more of these comments I can take. It's one thing to have a playful relationship, but it's another when it feels like he's actively trying to bring me down. I don't feel like I'm asking for too much by expecting basic respect, but I don't want to be the one to cause more drama. So, AITA for telling my brother I won't attend his birthday party or any more family events if he continues to treat me this way. Should I just suck it up and let it go? Or am I justified in standing my ground? AITA for getting upset when my friend didn't attend my graduation because it was too far. So, I, 23F, recently graduated from college, and honestly, I had mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I was super excited to be done with school, but on the other hand, I knew that some of the people I thought would be there to support me might not be. One person who I thought would definitely show up was my best friend, Lauren, 23F. We've been friends since high school, and we've always supported each other through thick and thin. At least, that's what I thought. For context, my graduation was taking place in another state because I went to college a few hours away from home. It wasn't too far, about a 3-hour drive, but it was a little bit of a trek. My parents and some other family members were already planning to come, and I was really excited about it because my family is very supportive, and I thought it would be special to have my closest friend there too. Lauren and I had talked about the graduation for months leading up to it. She'd told me she'd be there, and I was looking forward to seeing her. We had talked about how she could take a day off work and drive down, and I made sure to let her know exactly when and where it was happening. I even gave her some options for places to stay nearby, since she doesn't live in the same state, and I figured she might need somewhere to crash. However, a few days before the event, I got a text from Lauren that honestly shocked me. She said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. It's just too far, and I have a lot of stuff going on with work. I know it sucks, but I just can't justify the trip right now." I immediately felt my stomach drop. I tried to stay calm and responded, "What do you mean it's too far? We've talked about this for months, and you told me you'd be there." She replied that she had thought about it more and just didn't feel it was worth the time or effort for a 3-hour drive. She said she didn't want to take a day off work and that it was too much of a hassle for her. I was honestly so hurt, but I didn't want to explode on her, so I kept my cool and said something like, "Okay, well, I'm disappointed, but I understand." I wasn't okay with it, though. I mean, this is the friend I've known since high school, and I thought she would be there for one of the biggest moments of my life. It was really frustrating because I made sure to go to all of her important events, birthday parties, her family's events, everything. I've always shown up for her, even when it wasn't convenient for me. And this was my graduation, something I worked so hard for, and she couldn't even make the effort. When graduation day came, I was still reeling from her decision. I had a great time with my family, but it didn't feel the same without Lauren there. I kept thinking about her missing out on it, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was blowing me off. I talked to a few other friends about it, and they all agreed that it was weird and a little rude of her to back out last minute like that, especially since we've been talking about it for so long. Everyone said they would have made the effort if they were in her shoes. After the ceremony, I decided to text Lauren again. I told her, "I get that you had other things going on, but I'm really hurt that you couldn't make it. I just thought you would show up for me, like I've always shown up for you." She responded by saying that she was sorry, but that it wasn't something she could prioritize. She said it was just too much, and that she didn't think it was as big of a deal as I was making it out to be. She mentioned that she had her own life and responsibilities, which, in a way, made me feel guilty for even feeling upset. I know I probably shouldn't have let it get to me as much as it did, but I felt like my friend was letting me down when I needed her most. I started questioning our whole friendship, like if she couldn't show up for this, what would she show up for? I felt like maybe I was just another obligation for her, something that wasn't really worth the effort anymore. I talked it over with a few of my other friends, and some of them said I had every right to feel hurt. But others said I was overreacting and that I should just let it go. They said I was being dramatic about her missing one event, and that I shouldn't take it personally. The thing is, it's not just about her missing graduation. It's about the fact that this wasn't the first time she's bailed on me. There have been other instances where I've needed her, like when I was going through a tough breakup or when I had some family issues and she didn't show up the way I expected. But this was the first time I really confronted her about it, and it stung more than I thought it would. I'm now left wondering if I'm making too big of a deal out of it. A part of me thinks I should let it go and not make a huge issue out of this. But another part of me feels like this is the final straw in a series of disappointments that have been building up. So, AITA for being upset and hurt that my best friend didn't show up to my graduation? Should I just move on and forget about it? Or am I justified in feeling this way? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in with us after she got pregnant? I, 29M, have been married to my wife, Claire, 27F, for 4 years. We've always had a solid relationship, and while we've had our fair share of disagreements, we've worked through them together. We don't have kids yet, but we've talked about it and agreed that we want to wait a little longer before starting a family. My wife's sister, Megan, 25F, has been a huge part of our lives. She's been living on her own since she was 18, and she's always been very independent. But things have changed recently. Megan found out she's pregnant, and, to be blunt, she's completely overwhelmed. She's been dating this guy for about a year, but they're not in a stable enough relationship to raise a child together. They broke up about 2 weeks ago, and she's been living with her parents since then. Megan has a part-time job and is planning to go back to school soon, but she's struggling financially and emotionally. Her parents have said they can't keep supporting her, and that's where my wife and I come in. Megan has been asking if she can stay with us for a few months to get back on her feet. My wife has always been very supportive of her sister, but I've been hesitant. I have nothing against Megan personally, but I've always believed that once you become an adult, you need to take responsibility for your life. I'm also concerned about the stress it will put on our relationship and our home. My wife and I have a small 2-bedroom apartment, and we've already talked about how difficult it would be to have another person in the house. Our space is limited, and having an extra person, especially one who is pregnant and potentially hormonal, feels like a huge adjustment. The real problem is that Megan's situation is unpredictable. She doesn't have a stable plan for how she's going to support herself, and every time we talk about it, she just says she'll figure it out. While I admire her optimism, I'm a realist. She's not even sure what she's going to do once the baby is born. I think it's irresponsible to rely on us for support without having a concrete plan in place. A couple of weeks ago, Megan sat us down and begged us to let her stay with us. She promised it would only be for a few months, that she would help out around the house, and that she wouldn't be a burden. She's even offered to pay rent, but we don't need the money. I explained to her that I wasn't comfortable with the idea, and I wasn't sure it was a good idea for our marriage or our future. I told her I'd be happy to help in other ways, whether that's helping her with job applications or finding resources for pregnant women, but I didn't think moving in was the best solution. My wife, who has always been a lot more empathetic than I am, is torn. She feels bad for Megan and thinks it's the right thing to do, especially with the baby on the way. She keeps reminding me that families should help each other out, and that we'd be in a similar situation if I were the one who needed support. I get where she's coming from, but I don't think that means we have to put our lives on hold to accommodate someone who is not taking responsibility for herself. We both agreed that we'd eventually have a kid, and I don't want to risk our stability and happiness just to help Megan avoid her own consequences. The tension between my wife and me has been building up over the past week. Claire keeps bringing up Megan's situation, and it's creating a lot of tension. I don't want to be the bad guy, but I also don't want to invite someone into our home who isn't actively working towards their own independence. My wife and I have always valued our privacy, and I think it's important to maintain boundaries, even with family. I've offered to help Megan in other ways, like helping her find a better job, offering emotional support, and helping her get connected with resources that could help her. But every time I try to set a boundary, Claire gets upset and insists on being selfish and unsympathetic. She says that if Megan were in our position, she'd be willing to open her door and help. I don't know if she's right, but I don't feel like it's fair to ask us to sacrifice our comfort and privacy just to help Megan get through this difficult time. Things came to a head yesterday when Megan called me. almost in tears, saying she had nowhere else to go. Her parents were fed up, and she didn't know where to turn. I asked her if she had made a real plan for her future, but she said she was just trying to survive right now. I told her that while I wanted to help, I didn't think moving in with us was the answer. She started crying and said she felt like I didn't care about her, that I was being selfish and uncaring. That really hurt. I care about her a lot, but I don't think sacrificing my peace of mind and my wife's peace of mind is the answer. My wife was furious when I told her about the conversation, and she said I was being heartless and that I had no empathy for Megan's situation. She told me that I was making her choose between me and her sister, and that it was selfish to not be willing to help. I tried to explain that I was just trying to think about our future, but she didn't want to hear it. We've barely spoken since then, and I feel like things are really strained between us. I'm starting to wonder if I made the wrong call. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in with us when she's pregnant and in need of support? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law bring her kids to my wedding? I, 29F, am getting married in a few months to my fiancé, John, 31M. We've been together for 4 years, and our relationship has been amazing. He's truly my best friend, and we've been planning this wedding for over a year. We're having a fairly small wedding with around 80 guests, mostly close family and friends. It's going to be at a beautiful outdoor venue with an elegant yet simple feel to it. My sister-in-law, Kate, 35F, has been a bit of a challenge since I first met her. She's always been super overbearing, a bit controlling, and quite frankly, a drama magnet. It hasn't been easy to get along with her, especially since she tends to make everything about her. She has 3 kids, aged 10, 7, and 5, and she always insists on them being the center of attention whenever we're all together as a family. At family gatherings, she'll have the kids perform or ask people to give them gifts, and it's always a bit too much for me. Anyway, the issue with the wedding started when I sent out the invites. I specifically made a point to include a note on the invitation that said, "Adults only, please." We wanted a more intimate ceremony without the distractions of kids running around. Plus, given the semi-formal nature of the event, we just didn't think kids would be appropriate for the vibe we were going for. When I sent the invites, I was careful to address the guest list with only the adults in mind, but Kate responded within a week asking if I was serious about the adults-only request. She said she wasn't comfortable leaving her kids with a sitter for the whole evening and that they needed to be part of this special day. I tried to be polite and explained that we wanted to keep the ceremony and reception child-free for a variety of reasons, including the fact that we had limited space at the venue. She didn't take it well. She immediately started texting me, saying that I was being unreasonable and that her kids were part of the family and should be included in such an important event. She claimed that it was selfish to exclude her children, especially because they were her whole world. She even threatened to not attend the wedding at all if her kids weren't allowed to come, which I thought was dramatic, but I didn't want to get into a huge fight with her. After a few more texts, she made a passive-aggressive comment about how it must be nice to have a wedding where I don't have to worry about my kids and can just think about myself. I was a little hurt by that, but I didn't let it get to me too much. I thought the matter would end there, but it didn't. John's mom, 53F, got involved next. She called me up a couple of days later to tell me that I was making a huge mistake by not allowing the kids to come. She said that it was just unfair and that I should make an exception for Kate's kids. She said that it was a family event and that Kate was extremely upset by my decision. I told her that I had made it very clear from the beginning that this was going to be a child-free wedding, and I wasn't going to change that policy for anyone. She went on to say that Kate had been under a lot of stress lately, I guess because her husband works long hours, and she's always complaining about not having enough help with the kids, and that I should cut her some slack. I understood that Kate had a lot on her plate, but that didn't mean I should let her make my wedding into an event that revolved around her kids. The thing is, John is caught in the middle of all of this. He loves his sister, but he also supports my decision. He's been telling her to drop it and respect our wishes, but Kate keeps pushing. Now, she's gone one step further and started telling people in the family that I'm being selfish and that I'm choosing to hurt her for the sake of a wedding. Some of the extended family has reached out to me, questioning why I can't just make an exception, and it's honestly been draining. Here's where I'm starting to feel conflicted. On one hand, I feel like it's my wedding, and I should be able to have the kind of celebration I want. I didn't want to have to deal with the stress of managing kids at a formal event, especially with everything else that's been going on with wedding planning. On the other hand, I don't want to be the cause of a rift in the family. I'm not trying to be cruel or hurtful. I just want a wedding day where I can relax and enjoy myself without feeling like I'm babysitting someone else's kids. A few days ago, Kate called me and said that if her kids couldn't come, she and her husband would not be attending at all. She also implied that she might not be at the family events leading up to the wedding, like the rehearsal dinner, which she's usually heavily involved in. She said it wasn't fair for her kids to be excluded from something so important to her family. I told her that I understood how she felt, but I still wasn't willing to make an exception. I just don't think it's the right time to bend the rules, especially after all the planning that's been done and the fact that I've been upfront about the policy from the start. So, AITA for sticking to my guns and refusing to allow my sister-in-law to bring her kids to my wedding, even though it's causing tension within the family. I really don't want to make things worse, but I also don't want to back down from what I feel is a reasonable request for my special day. AITA for not letting my sister-in-law move in with us after her divorce. I, 31M, have been married to my wife, Sarah, 30F, for 5 years. We don't have kids, but we have a nice home in the suburbs, both working full-time jobs, and generally, life has been going pretty well. My wife comes from a large family, and we see her relatives often. One of her sisters, Amy, 28F, has been a bit of a wild card for as long as I've known her. She's always been somewhat of a drama queen, and while I wouldn't say I don't like her, we've never been particularly close. Amy recently went through a divorce, which came as no surprise to anyone. She had been married for about 3 years, and we all knew that relationship was on the rocks for a while. They had a pretty toxic dynamic, with Amy often talking about how controlling and manipulative her ex-husband was. While I was sympathetic to her situation, I also always felt that Amy had a tendency to exaggerate things to make herself appear like a victim in every scenario. Still, I try to be supportive, and when she first separated from her husband, Sarah, and I had her over for dinner a few times to help her adjust. A few weeks ago, Amy called me and Sarah out of the blue. She told us that her divorce had been finalized, and she was looking for a place to stay for a while. She said she couldn't afford rent on her own, and her credit was damaged from the divorce, so she couldn't secure a place. She asked if she could move in with us temporarily while she figured things out. She made it sound like a short-term situation, just a few months. Max Sarah was sympathetic, but I was immediately put off by the idea. I didn't think it was a good idea for a number of reasons. First, I didn't want to open the door to having someone live with us long-term, especially since I knew Amy's tendency to overstay her welcome. She had lived with other family members before when she needed a place to crash, and it never seemed to end well. Plus, she always had a way of making everything about her and could be extremely passive-aggressive when things didn't go her way. I brought this up to Sarah, and we had a long conversation about it. Sarah was very understanding of Amy's situation, but she also admitted that she didn't want to cause any family tension. She said that Amy would be heartbroken if we didn't help her out, and she didn't want to feel like the bad guy. I told Sarah that I didn't want to feel like I was stuck with Amy living in our house for months or potentially years, especially since we didn't even have the space for her to be comfortable. Our spare bedroom is small, and we both work from home sometimes, so the last thing I wanted was to add more stress to our daily lives. Eventually, Sarah said she would talk to Amy and explain our concerns. I hoped that would be the end of it. But a few days later, Amy called again, insisting that she had nowhere else to go. She didn't have any other family members who could help, and she couldn't afford to rent a place by herself. At this point, Sarah and I were both feeling guilty, and I reluctantly agreed that Amy could stay with us for a short period. However, I made it clear that there were boundaries. I told Sarah that I didn't want Amy to be here for more than a few months, and that she would have to respect our space and privacy. Amy moved in about 2 weeks ago, and things have been challenging. From the start, it was clear that she had no intention of staying for a few months. She immediately started making herself at home, rearranging the furniture in the living room, and even taking over the bathroom counter with her beauty products and toiletries. She wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong, but it felt like she was settling in long-term, and it made me uncomfortable. The bigger issue, however, is the constant emotional drama. Amy has been coming to me and Sarah nearly every day to talk about her ex-husband, how hurt she is, and how she's struggling to find a new direction in life. While I have sympathy for what she's going through, it's becoming a lot to handle. She'll often sit with us during dinner and cry, asking us for advice on her relationship, even though we've told her multiple times that we don't want to get involved in her personal life. It's exhausting, and I've had to step in a few times to ask her to give us some space. I'm not good with emotional conversations, and I definitely don't want to be her therapist. On top of that, her behavior around the house has been getting more and more annoying. She leaves her dirty dishes all over the kitchen, refuses to clean up after herself, and has started making passive-aggressive comments about things being too quiet or too boring around here. Sarah and I are both introverts, and we're used to our quiet routine, but Amy has been constantly talking about how dull our lives are compared to her former social life with her ex. She even made comments about us not being as fun as her and her ex were, which felt unnecessarily rude. I started getting frustrated and had a conversation with Sarah, telling her that I couldn't keep living like this. I told her I thought it was unfair to put all this emotional and logistical weight on our marriage and our home. I said I didn't feel like I was being heard, and that Amy's presence was adding too much stress to our lives. Sarah agreed that things weren't perfect, but she felt stuck between supporting her sister and not creating drama in the family. After some back and forth, we both agreed that we would set a hard deadline for Amy to find another place to live. We gave her until the end of the month to find something, which is only a few weeks away. Now, Amy is upset. She thinks we're being unreasonable and says that we're treating her like an inconvenience. She's told Sarah that she feels abandoned and that we're not being good family members. I've tried to stay firm on the boundary, but Sarah is starting to doubt whether we're being too harsh. She feels bad about the situation, especially because it's clear that Amy is struggling. But I think we've done enough, and it's time for her to figure things out on her own. So, AITA for setting a hard deadline for Amy to move out? Should I have been more accommodating or understanding of her situation? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law live with me after her divorce? I, 28F, have been married to my husband, 30M, for 5 years. We've always had a pretty solid relationship, and we live in a nice 3-bedroom house we bought a couple of years ago. My husband, Greg, has a younger sister, Emily, 27F, who has always been a bit complicated. We don't have a terrible relationship, but we're not exactly close either. I've always tried to be respectful and kind to her, but I've never really gotten a warm feeling from her, and our interactions are often surface level at best. A few weeks ago, Emily went through a tough divorce. Her marriage had been on the rocks for a while, and though I don't know the details, I'm sure the split wasn't easy for her. My husband and I were both supportive of her during the process, even though Greg's been a little more distant because he was already on bad terms with her ex-husband. When Emily's divorce was finalized, she came to us, asking if she could move in temporarily while she figured out her next steps. At first, I was open to the idea. I've always tried to be a good sister-in-law, and I figure it wouldn't be too bad. After all, it's just temporary, right? But then the reality of the situation started setting in. The way Emily approached, it seemed a little more demanding than I expected. She mentioned that she didn't want to waste time finding her own place, and that she'd be looking for a new job at the same time. She asked if she could stay for at least 6 months, which was a huge red flag for me. I brought it up with Greg, and he seemed a little unsure. He said that we should help her out because she's family, but he also acknowledged that it might be difficult to have her living with us for so long. We talked about it for a few days, and ultimately, I told him I wasn't comfortable with the idea. I explained that while I understand she's going through a tough time, living together for an extended period might create tension, especially since Emily and I have never been the closest. Plus, our house is relatively small, and I didn't feel like it would be a healthy environment for all of us to be under one roof for that long. Greg tried to reassure me that it wouldn't be a big deal, but I stuck to my guns. I said I would be happy to help in other ways, offering emotional support, helping her find a place, even maybe chipping in financially for a short-term rental if needed, but I wasn't comfortable with her moving in with us. Emily didn't take it well. When Greg told her my decision, she was livid. She called me selfish and said that I was being unsupportive, especially when I knew how hard her divorce had been on her. She said that families should stick together, and that as her brother's wife, I should be more understanding. Greg, and I tried to explain that it wasn't about not supporting her, but about boundaries and space. We didn't want to risk damaging our relationship with her by having her move in when we knew it could lead to tension and conflict. The argument between Emily and me escalated when she started texting me. She told me that I was lucky that Greg even wanted to help her, and that if I really cared about my marriage, I'd make an effort to be a good sister-in-law. She also accused me of being more concerned about my own comfort than her well-being. At this point, I felt like I had to stand my ground, so I told her again that I was willing to help in other ways, but that I couldn't host her in our home. She hasn't spoken to me since, and it's been awkward. Greg is caught in the middle and tries to keep the peace, but I can tell he's frustrated. He says I'm being too hard on her, but at the same time, he agrees that it could be difficult to have her living here. Emily's now staying with a mutual friend of theirs, but she's been making it clear that she's disappointed in me, and I feel like our relationship is permanently damaged. I'm feeling really conflicted. On the one hand, I understand that she's going through a hard time, but on the other hand, I don't think it's unreasonable to set boundaries about who stays in our home. Greg has tried to reassure me that it's not about me being selfish, but I can't shake the feeling that I might have messed up. If I just agreed, things might have been easier. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law live with us after her divorce. I'm not sure if I overreacted, and I'm starting to feel guilty about the whole situation. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she tried to pressure me into giving up my dream job for it. So I, 28F, have a sister, Megan, 26F, who's getting married in a few months. We've had a pretty standard sibling relationship growing up, but things have gotten a bit more complicated as we've gotten older. Megan is the type of person who expects a lot of attention and can be very demanding. I, on the other hand, am much more laid back and tend to avoid drama whenever I can. Here's where the issue started. A few months ago, Megan announced her engagement, and, of course, she started planning her wedding immediately. Like most people, she's been really excited about the whole thing. I've been supportive of her throughout, even though I had a feeling there was going to be some tension when the time came for me to be involved in the wedding. Megan has always had a very clear idea of what she wants, and that includes making sure everyone else fits into her plans exactly how she wants them to. The first red flag was when she called me one afternoon to talk about her wedding. She was telling me about the venue she chose, the colors, the flowers, basically all the details. Then she dropped the bomb. She said, "So, I was thinking it'd be great if you could quit your job and move back home for a while before the wedding. It would really help with the planning and the stress, and I could use your help with everything. Now, I need to provide some context. I live in a different city than my family for work. I'm an executive assistant at a fast-growing tech startup, and I've been there for almost 3 years. I've worked my ass off to get where I am, and I finally have a position that I'm proud of. It's not just a job. It's a career that I'm passionate about. The idea of leaving it, even temporarily, was something I wasn't willing to entertain. I told Megan that I couldn't quit my job to come help her with wedding planning. At first, she didn't seem to understand, and honestly, I thought it was just a suggestion. But she kept pressing the issue, saying things like, "It'll only be for a few months," or "Don't you want to be there for me during this special time?" I explained to her that, while I would love to be there to support her, my job wasn't something I could just leave behind. The company was counting on me, and I had responsibilities I couldn't abandon. Megan then shifted her tactics. She started telling me that my lack of commitment was hurting her feelings. She said, "I would never ask you to choose between family and your career, but it feels like you're choosing your job over being there for me." I was starting to feel guilty, but I stuck to my decision. I told her that I would be more than happy to help out when I could, but I couldn't move back home or leave my job. She seemed to accept that, but I soon realized I was wrong. A few weeks later, I received another call from Megan. This time, it wasn't about wedding planning, but about the bridal party. She said, "So, I was talking to the wedding planner, and we've decided that it would be ideal if you could take on the role of maid of honor. It's such an important role, and I know you're the perfect person for it." I was taken aback, mainly because I wasn't expecting her to ask me to be her maid of honor, and I hadn't even said anything about attending the wedding yet. I hesitated for a moment before responding. I was already feeling stressed by the constant pressure, and now she was pushing me into a major responsibility. I told her that I would be honored to stand by her side, but that I still couldn't quit my job or move home. She didn't take it well. She said, "You're going to be my maid of honor, right? You can't just be there for the wedding day and not help with the planning. If you can't be fully committed, then I might have to ask someone else to step into that role." At that point, I started feeling like I couldn't win. I couldn't be there enough for her wedding without giving up everything I'd worked so hard for. And every time I said no, she made me feel like a terrible person. I tried explaining how important my career was to me and how much I'd be sacrificing if I just dropped everything, but she didn't seem to care. Her frustration was clear, and she told me that if I didn't prioritize her wedding, I would be making a huge mistake. I got a little emotional and told her I couldn't keep doing this. I said that if my presence at her wedding meant giving up my job, I wouldn't be able to attend. It wasn't that I didn't want to be there for her, but it was more than I could give up, especially with my career just starting to take off. Megan hung up on me that day. For the next few days, I didn't hear from her, and I started to think that maybe I was just being selfish. But then she texted me, saying that I was being unreasonable and that I was making everything harder than it had to be. She also mentioned that I could still be part of the wedding, but I would have to fly in for the event. In other words, I'd have to travel and show up just for the wedding day without any involvement in the planning or helping her out leading up to it. I felt like that was her way of giving me an out, but it also felt like a way of saying that my presence wasn't really welcome if I wasn't going to be fully invested. I was so frustrated by this whole ordeal, I told her I needed some space to think things through. Megan responded with a text saying, "If you choose not to come to my wedding, you might regret it. It's a huge deal, and family should come together for these things. I hope you realize that what you're doing is wrong. Now I'm stuck. I really value my career, and I don't want to jeopardize everything I've worked for just to meet her expectations. But at the same time, I love my sister, and I feel like I'm letting her down. I don't want to miss her wedding, but I also don't think it's right for her to try to force me to make such a huge sacrifice. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding if it means giving up my job to do so." Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.